Now, obviously, you two shared a dressing room at West Ham, and I was interested to read the story this week when you were speaking to other media outlets, which I'll just about forgive you for. But it was about you two not talking to each other when you played for England, having been mates when you were barrelling around East London as young lads. Just explain, from both of your perspectives, sort of how this first began. Where did the seed first start?
Mine was that we were both at West Ham, came through, done everything together, room together,
proper
travelled
mates.
everywhere. Proper mates from like 14, 15 years old, done everything. And then I left and went to Leeds and eventually Manchester United, and Frank went to Chelsea. And really around that time, we just kind of, our communication just disintegrated. And it was down to really, from my perspective, and Frank will give you his after, but the obsession with winning. I didn't want to see Frank have an edge on me. I didn't want to speak to him about anything that he might be able to take away and use to facilitate his team winning, etc. And it just became an unwritten kind of conduct, really. And it was the same with Stevie. When I was with England, Stevie, when we was battling for them for the Premier League, I didn't want to really sit around him and be around him because I just didn't want to hear what Liverpool was doing. And it's a fact, he was. And I know he felt the same about me. It's a fact.
No, he didn't. He loved being with you. He didn't know why he never spoke to you.
We're pals, we're friends.
I didn't want to sit by. Did Fergie tell you can't speak to anyone?
No, he used to say, don't go, full stop. We've got a big game Saturday.
But I'm an England fan, and I'm sitting at home thinking, this is brilliant. This is the golden generation. These lads love each other. They play together. They can't wait to go and win a World Cup together.
I think that's what held us
back. But it sounds like what you're saying is you were putting club above country because you were so bothered about winning for your club. And I'm watching you thinking, can you win for the country?
But it was subconsciously. It wasn't like at the forefront of our minds going, whatever happens in England, I don't care. This is about Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool. It's like I didn't mean it. It's looking back retrospectively now. This is how I see it was.
That's what we want now, isn't it? To take on the club that you play for. I certainly felt it at Chelsea. Stevie obviously at Liverpool, Mr. Liverpool. Rio the same, took on Manchester United. You feel so passionately about the club you play with, your teammates, your own performance and yourself, that to be a bit pally with someone down the road who you're competitive with.
But didn't that hold back England?
It may have done. I think Rio's right. I think we sat. We didn't hate each other. We went, but by nature we would sit on tables and stick together slightly. A lot of other nations have players playing all over the world. Then they come back together and they don't have that competitive. Every week we were at each other in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, I think it was more of respectful relationships around England rather than a bond, rather than the closeness where there was love there. When I speak to other international players when I played, like you could see in yours and stuff, they can't wait to go away with Brazil. It's the best 10 days of their season, if you like. Whereas you didn't really get that feeling when you went away with England. You were looking forward to the games, but everything else around the games was a bit like that.
Isn't that something we have to try and change?
Have to improve it, have to change it. I think the bond and the spirit and the togetherness and the closeness has to improve. I think Gareth's trying to do that, and I think it will definitely help results on the pitch because, as Rio said, I think possibly it did have an effect on how well we did. Having saying that, we got to the quarter-finals of competitions and we're that close on penalty shootouts. I'm sure the fans would take that now.
Sure. Yeah,
exactly.
So but you sort of wonder if you had that amazing bond, maybe that would have been the little bit you needed.
What's the difference with this generation coming through now is that they're winning trophies together. From 17 years old, they're winning trophies together. So they've created that bond from now. So that will carry on throughout their senior years as well. Hopefully they all come through together. Yeah. I look at Spain. David De Gea's era, and just before that with Iniesta, they were doing well with their youth teams. Under 21s go straight into the first team. They've carried that through. Germany exactly the same. Hopefully, we're now at the beginning of that cycle here with England.
But we have to stop this thing happening again, though, don't we? This sort of little tweaks and
you'll find it hard to take it away. The basics, I think, of what Rio said of when you're playing week in, week out for your club. To be pally, it can happen, but I understand exactly what you're saying. I felt the same. We didn't ever speak about it, just the way it went.
Yeah, it was weird.
Did the managers try and do anything about it? Capello or Sven, did they see what was going on? And
as Rio said, he wasn't even aware of it, so I'm not sure the managers would have picked up on it because they just see it at meal times and you're chatting together and you're together. But it could have definitely been better and more together.
The only thing they did try and do was the tables situation. We used to get like 4 or 5 tables. You'd have a Man United table, you'd have a Liverpool and other table, you'd have a Shearer and his table. Do you know what I mean? And it was different, it was weird. And so what they done was made it one table, didn't they, at the dinner times? Every lunch, breakfast and dinner, it was one big table.
Man United end.
Man United end. So you worked your way around it, just different tables. But I don't know, would you change it? I don't know. It's difficult. I'd love to have won with England, obviously. but to the detriment of winning for your club as well, it's a hard one.
It's a piece of the puzzle, isn't it? It's one thing. There are loads of reasons why it didn't quite come right. As Steven said, we got to quarter-finals, but hopefully this new generation coming through as a block, they will have that bond stronger than maybe we did.
So what would your message now be to Gareth and to those young players coming through? Don't allow this sort of desire to win for your club to get on top of you when you're with your country.
I think just park it up a bit more and get them together, get them mixing more, spend more time together, and don't have any cliques or don't let them bring the Premier League situation into the international setup.
Do you regret it?
It's not something to say I regret. I regret that we couldn't win anything, but it's not that simple. It just felt natural. What we were doing at our clubs. We were all focused on our thing. I don't think there was anything personal. It certainly wasn't between us lot.
But I don't think that's the only reason why we didn't win. No. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't just put it to that. There were so many other different variables that could affect us winning.
When you look back, what do you put it down to? We called you, didn't we? The press called you the golden generation. You didn't label yourselves that, but we expected so much of you. What do you three now look back on and think maybe that was?
I don't think we had a manager who was maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, brave enough to sort out our midfield. We had the best midfield on paper. We had the best midfield players in the world at the time.
Yep.
Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes, Beckham, Hargreaves, Carrick. I mean, you can go on. And even below that, you had more players. But a depth of talent in there, ridiculous. We played a rigid 4-4-2. So if you've got the best midfielders in the world, you try and get them in a team, a diamond or whatever, you play them. And all of these guys could have been interchangeable within that system. You see Spain now, Germany, they would have fitted into them teams because they would have made sure their best players, most creative players would have been on the pitch.
I don't think we had a manager who really had a philosophy or a way of playing that worked in terms of constructing possession-wise to keep the ball long enough. I felt as if most of the time with England, you picked a team and you went out and tried to play, and we played very individual. I didn't feel like we were a part of a team that played a certain way, and that's the way we stuck to under a certain manager. I think that's one factor, but I think also we have to take responsibility of ourselves. I felt as if I didn't hit the peak or my top performances playing for England. I did every now and again, but I didn't consistently. So in terms of factors, I was one of the factors. Not having a manager that created a philosophy to play within, that was another factor. Not bonding enough lads, what we've just been speaking about, another factor. There's a lot of factors around it. Maybe it being too hot at certain times. Maybe we had injuries to certain players, like, for example, when we lost Rio going into a World. There's a lot of factors and reasons why you don't win. But I think, first and foremost, you've got to look at yourself.
We'll always take personal responsibility first, and we're all very honest about that. We're very driven, when you're not at the level. But I definitely think, from a midfield point of view, going to World Cups would breeze through the group, comfortably get through the group. 4-4-2 was fine. Then you go and play in a really hot country and go and play against Paraguay, and they've got four little fellas in midfield playing 1-2s around you. And me and Stevie slightly out of position. I'm used to being a bit free to get forward, but all of a sudden I've got to defend against four. Everything changed in an instant, and it's very tough to get a grip of a game in midfield when you're outnumbered.
At the same time, it's difficult for a manager to say to a Wayne Rooney or a Michael Owen, you're not playing today, we're going to go 4-5-1 and pack the midfield. It's difficult.
It sounds to me like you're sitting on the bus going to a crucial World Cup game. The nation are getting their snacks and their drinks, about to sit down in front of the telly. And you're not necessarily sitting on that bus thinking, we've got this nailed, brilliant team, looking around, knowing exactly where everyone's playing. There's slight anxiety on that bus, or there's a little bit of doubt about the manager and the approach.
No, I don't think there's doubt about. When you're in that bubble of a tournament, you go in there thinking as positively as you can. We're going to have a chance to win this. But in the back of your mind, you're going in against a Brazil. You're going in against, like you say, a Paraguay later on in the competition. Almost half knowing you're going to get popped, you're going to get played off the pitch in terms of possession. You're not going to have a lot of the ball. You have to defend well and hope to nick a goal. And that's not a nice way to go into a game, considering the teams that we're coming from, where we dominate a lot of possession and you're winning things. To go into an England team like that, it's such a big shift in terms of preparation for a game. Knowing what talent we had in our squad as well, it was quite frustrating in that respect.
So do you look back on your England days now and smile?
No, I've got good memories and happy times when you've won and you've reached caps, milestones, your goals and the performances and being around all the quality players and stuff. But of course, I sit here thinking, like, it could have been better. We could have had a better manager. I could have done better. All these things go through your mind. So it's probably mixed emotions.
A lot of pride. I feel a lot of pride for the amount of caps. I never thought I'd get anywhere near the caps I got, but definitely that feeling of wish we could have done better. I never really enjoyed a World Cup, and I hate that, because the World Cup, you speak to young players, you go into a World Cup, it's like the dream. And I went, and for me personally, it didn't go great. So I was carrying that around with me for the whole month or 6 weeks. So I have small regrets that didn't work. But
yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda type thing. I mean, only if type feelings.
Fascinating chat, and knowing you three as I do, it certainly wasn't through lack of desire or love for your country, that's for sure.